Mark, you've actually had a similar career to mine in that you started as a journalist and then you segued into actually being a screenwriter. For people who may not know your bio as well as I do, you were a film editor for the Los Angeles Times. You worked for the Hollywood Reporter and Entertainment Weekly. But then more recently, after you segued into TV, you've worked on Alphas, you've worked on Castle Rock on Hulu, Carnival Row on Amazon, Treadstone on the USA Network, and now currently this is the latest thing. My goodness, I know I'm going to want to talk to you about this. You are now a producer on the new series, new season of Star Trek Picard.
Yeah, which is bananas.
I know you're not going to be able to tell me too much, but give me a little something like I mean, I guess you're not going into the office, right? But what's it been like since you started there? Tell me what it's like being in the Picardiverse.
Yeah, it's surreal in the oddest, best possible way. You know, the Next Generation was when I was a kid, like it was the show that I watched on the most regular. It was like that and the X-Files. And so that if, you know, you had to ask me, well, if you ever wanted to write for TV, who would you want to write for? It's like, well, the only characters I know well enough to do that with are the bridge officers in the Enterprise. And so, you know, 25, 30 years later, to get to sit down and write things like, you know, interior bridge, Jean-Luc Picard strides on, you know, full of purpose is insane. It's insane. And you know, it feels as if, you know, it's a bit like that Killmonger quote in Black Panther. It's like, I've been training my whole life for this. It's like, oh, who knew that being that nerd, that kid, you know, who had the technical manual for the NCC 1701D, that this is now something that they will pay me for.
Oh yeah, I remember when I dug out my old Death Star technical manual. Like, finally, this is all paying off. Finally. I mean, obviously, I know there's. I'm quite certain there's not much you'll be able to tell us. But like, are you playing a role in like the overall story direction of the new season? Like, what actually is your role on the show?
Yeah, I mean, the job is, and it's weird and it's odd, but TV writing is both. You know, a collective. It's almost like socialist in a way, as well as a dictatorship. So like every person who's in a writer's room, their job is to help guide, inform, and offer input into the overall story you're telling. Yeah, there are going to be like people above you who are, you know, the masters of that universe. But your job is to just like, hey, wouldn't it be cool if we did this? Wouldn't it be cool if we did that? Like, wouldn't it be neat if you know, this happened? And so yeah, the job is very much just throwing stuff up against a wall and seeing what sticks. And those things could be as small as lines of dialogue in an episode, or as big as, here's what maybe, you know, the next season could be about, or here's what this season is.
Oh, look, I got to say, I'm very envious because Picard, I have a similar relationship with Next Gen and Picard that you do. So you basically got my dream job right now.
Yeah, well, dude, you got to fucking click on Darth Vader's lightsaber, so I don't want to hear it.
All right, fine. We each got a piece of the nerd pie. Yeah, that's true. I don't want to be too greedy here. Mark, I want to talk to you about this other really fascinating, you know, you and I also have something else in common because we both came up with these weird creative ideas that were kind of precipitated by lockdown. I came up with this dumb talk show, which you're currently appearing on, and you created something called The Plague Nerdalogs. I'm gonna show a trailer from it, and we'll drop a clip into the chat. But like, in your own words, tell me about The Plague Nerdalogs and what that is.
Yeah, I mean, it was sort of informed by this sense of impotence, I think, that lots of people felt when the lockdown began, when, you know, jobs began disappearing, when you could just see and feel it in the sort of tone and texture of America that, you know, people were hurting and people were lost and people were somewhat adrift. And, you know, and some of those people are friends of mine, and some of those people are, you know, those of us in the creative arts who are just, you know, I'm lucky in that I still get to do my job virtually, but there are a lot of people like actors and makeup people, stunt people who are just sitting at home, unable to ply their trade and feeling somewhat useless about it. And so The Plague Nerdalogs was hey, you know what? There are all of these people that I've come across. There's all of these friends that I have, you know, some of which are actors, some of which are producers and writers, and they can't quite do their jobs. And so what if there's a way to put them to work and then use that work to raise money? And the thing that they could all do, every actor, is sit at home and self-tape. It's a thing most of them do to get auditions and get parts anyway. Like, go home and give me a reading on this part. They all know how to do it. And I said, hey, well, you know, I'm also a nerd. And one of my deep strains of nerddom is like the great speeches that you get in science fiction and movies and TV and fantasy stuff. And it's like, hey, couldn't we get some of these actors who aren't doing anything to perform some of these pieces that they would love, put them behind a paywall, wall, and everybody who like pays to access these is just donating to charity. And lots of people responded because I think they wanted to do something good. They were all feeling the way I was feeling, which was somewhat useless. And then B, they got to do the thing that they do well. They got to act, they got to perform, they got to, and to dig into stuff that they grew up watching and loving. And it just sort of snowballed. And so we've done now 2 waves of it. The first wave was benefiting No Kid Hungry, and we raised about $17,000 for No Kid Hungry in about a month. And then, the world was already on fire in one capacity, and then the new fire started. When there began to be this very inspirational and powerful movement to sort of affect global change in how we view systemic racism and how we view police action and how we view the desire and the overall social responsibility that America has towards its Black Americans. And so for the second wave, it was like, all right, let's raise money for Black Lives Matter. And the same people who had taken part in the first wave were absolutely chimed in and offered their support. And then we got this entirely new cluster of actors and performers who wanted to come on board for the second wave, including Kevin, who generously contributed this amazing monologue from Ratatouille by
I knew that's what it was from. That's one of my favorites as well. I love that one.
Yeah, no, it's great.
I think every creative loves every.
Oh my God. Yeah, all of us
like,
on the filmmaker side, like I said, the ones who are in the arena, to take another phrase, I think all appreciated that speech.
Absolutely agreed. It's one of those moments like I remember seeing Ratatouille and breaking down during that scene, getting really emotional, crying, by virtue of the fact that it's like that's what you wish every critic would say to you. Like, look, we get the game, but it's not personal, and here is what it could mean, and blah blah blah. It's just such a wonderful sequence. So when Mark was like, here's a list you could choose from, I was looking over the monologues, and one of them was Michael Caine doing Alfred.
Oh, okay.
Which was tempting as heck, but when I saw that Anton Ego's monologue from Ratatouille was there, I was like,
yeah, of course.
Do it. And so that's how you get Silent Bob to open up his mouth.